Yes, 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 yes. This is another beautiful, beautiful evening GN Studios, and this happens to be another episode of Global Issues, the platform where we talk about politics and anything that borders on civic development. Today happens to be the 11th day of January 2020. Yes, the 11th day of January 2020, and we thank God for life and that we are fortunate to have seen today. And the time is exactly 7 minutes after the hour of 8. 7 minutes after the hour of 8. Yes. And as I said, this is Global Issues, the platform where we discuss very, very salient issues, politics, economics, and anything that bothers in civic development. Um, just a quick roundup on the weather, some sports, then politics, then we um, delve into the um, um, the topic of today. Today we have a very important personality um, on the line, and we're going to talk about. We have the MP4 STREATHAM bill, RIBEIRO-ADDY. So we're going to discuss about the challenging role of what an MP. But before that, I'm just going to do a quick recap on the weather. Now, this evening and tonight, outbreaks of rain and drizzle over southern and the central parts of England, clearing to the south. Then fog and frost developing under clearer skies. Now windier across the north and with rain and drizzle for northwest Scotland and the northern Isles. Now Wednesday, there's four patches, slow to clear. Else dry with sunny periods after frost start. Milder in the north, but windy with some rain or drizzle in the far north. Politics. Boris Johnson can't hide from party allegations, says Labour's Angela Rayner. Now, Boris Johnson can run, but can't. Boris Johnson can run, but can't hide from allegations he attended lockdown drinks in the Downing Street garden, Labour's Angela Rayner has said. Now, speaking in the Commons, the party's deputy leader demanded answers over the alleged gathering on 20th of May 2020. Now, Mr. Minister Michael Ellis, standing in for Ms. Johnson, said a fair and um, impartial investigation had to take place before any conclusion could what be made now, but several senior conservatives have also called for answers from the MP. Now, Mr. Ellis said the inquiry into the Drains Party and other gatherings on government premises during COVID restrictions led by senior civil servant Sue Gray should be swift. Now, today we have we'll be joined online by the MP for Streatham, Bill Ribeiro, Addy, and we're going to talk about the challenging role of an MP. So she's going to join us soon via phone in the studios. Yeah, very soon we're going to have Bill Ribeiro join us on phone. Hello? Hello? Hello, Bill? Oh, sorry, just a minute. Hello, Bill.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, good evening. We're so privileged to have you join us at GN Studios here at Vox Studios in Vauxhall. It's a big, big privilege, and we are very, very, very honored to have you join us by phone. Um, Happy New Year in advance. Sorry,
Happy New
Yeah,
Year.
Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Yeah, thank you for your taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Now, you 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 became a you're a British Labour Party politician who has served as member of Parliament for Streatham since 2019. Yeah, general election. Now, how was the journey for you during the campaign period till the time that you won elections, and what do you think that was so unique about you, as compared to your competitors, especially those of the on the tourist ticket that made the people vote for you? What do you think was that special, and how was the journey like?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me on. I'm really pleased to be speaking to you this evening. And the journey was definitely an interesting one. It's been a very tumultuous time in politics over the past few years. So I suppose it wasn't, your usual straightforward in elections coming up. You get selected by your party. And then you go through. There was so much going on. No one knew when the election was going to be called. There were a lot of false alarms. So it was all quite tumultuous, all quite hectic, and it all happened very, very quickly.
Mm.
But I suppose it was definitely to my advantage in that way. And I think perhaps what set me apart from the others contesting, and I suppose the most specific thing is that I've lived in the constituency my whole life. And except for when I went up to study at university in Bradford for 3 years, but other than that, I've lived in that same area, and I suppose in that way, my very dedicated to it. It's my home. It always has been, and I expect it always will be.
Okay, that's very. I mean, that's that is fantastic. Obviously, you succeeded Chukwumuna, who had been MP for Streatham from 2010 to 2019, and still on the Labour ticket. So it's like Streatham happens to be a strong Labour stronghold, a stronghold for Labour. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the contributing factors that apparently has endeared Labour to the Streatham constituency? What is it about Labour that, what is that? The ideological inclination that has helped Labour hold on that constituency for technically, I think that 9 years plus another maybe 4 years, that'll be 13 years. A Labour ticket. What do you think is that X factor that has helped Labour hold on to that constituency?
Well, I mean, it was actually before then. I remember the first Labour MP that was elected in the area was the MP just before Chuka, who was Keith Hill, and I remember he was elected when I was a kid. I remember leafleting for him, with my mum when I was in primary school. For his election, and that was quite a big deal. And obviously, since it's gone Labour, it hasn't gone back, except for obviously those few brief months where Chukwumuna was in an independent, then in his own party, then as part of the Lib Dems. But the seat has only ever been won by Labour since then. And I think, definitely at the time, and when it was first won, that was a time of great issue. Great issues in the country from at the time of Margaret Thatcher, when things were going quite badly then. And Streatham is quite a diverse and working class area, and I think all of the values that the Labour Party have definitely appealed to people in the area. And actually, it's an area which a lot of people that look like me, a lot of people that have come from elsewhere, and again, like I said, a lot of people in public service, in working class positions. So you've got right now within the constituency, there are a lot of EU nationals, there are a lot of Ghanaians, there are a lot of Nigerians, there are a lot of Jamaicans, there are a lot of South Americans from Brazil and other countries. So it's always been an attraction for multiculturalism, for diversity, and I think that's got to do a lot with the communities that are formed there. But also its proximity to central London, which
Oh.
definitely helps in that sense. So I think people in the area just began to reflect traditional Labour voters and traditional Labour values.
Okay. During the 2016 referendum, Streatham unanimously voted that they wanted us to be part of what, the European Union. Now,
Yeah.
how to what extent was the blow to the constituency when subsequently the UK decided to opt out of the EU, and up to date, what impact has it had on the social economic evolution that in as a constituency, what level of impact has it had?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, all right. Did you get the question, please?
Yeah. You were talking about how much of a blow has Brexit been
Yeah.
to. Well, firstly, obviously, my constituents understood quite well what was happening, and we had the highest Remain vote on in Streatham on in the UK. Not the highest Remain vote overall, because actually Gibraltar, which
I
is
think
counted.
Streatham was the second largest. I think.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
It
yes.
was. It was well. Is the largest on mainland UK. But it was the second largest in what is counted as the country, because Gibraltar, which is geographically in Spain but part of the UK, obviously voted slightly higher than Streatham to remain in the EU. And to be quite frank, I don't blame them. Look at where they're physically situated. So Streatham had an extremely high Remain vote, and I think it's because of the makeup of the area. It's because of the industries where a lot of the people that live in the area work in. So people working in the arts and entertainment are really, really struggling now, um, without having free movement for work. People that traders, for example, are having great issue because of the taxes that need to be paid. And just generally EU nationals who have made Streatham their home, all these issues with settled status have caused massive problems. And the country is poorer and the cost of living has gone up. All of the promises that people were made that that would happen when Brexit came, that we'd get more money for this, more money for that, it's just not happened. People are really suffering, and as the year goes on and more things continue to be put in place, I think we're going to see even worse the impact of Brexit.
So technically, you think that the UK apparently shot its foot by coming out of the EU? Is that what you think? You think that was a very monumental blunder?
It was a massive blunder, which we're going to be paying for ages. And when we think about the referendum, um, David Cameron, who put down the referendum, he didn't want to leave the EU. He was just trying to appease his local party. He was trying to appease his party members, by having this referendum and thinking, oh, don't worry, people are just going to vote to stay in. Not actually realising that actually people had a lot of issues. People had a lot of issues, and they were being blamed on our involvement in the EU, and not a lot of work had been done to counter that. So he took a gamble, and the saddest thing is he took this gamble, and all of us are suffering for it now.
No, okay. It will be a fantastic, opportunity if probably another time we can discuss about the Brexit. But going forward, you have described yourself as a lifelong socialist and a feminist. Now, what influences your bigotry to the political philosophy of socialism and feminism, and how has that shaped your political career?
Well, I think it's just that idea of equality for me. I have always very strongly felt that people should have equality, and that regardless of who you are, you should be able to have the best, given what you need to have the best opportunities in life. And people quite falsely ascribe socialism with things being taken away from rich people that have worked very hard. And I think that's a very sad way to look at it. All that socialists are trying to say is that we have enough for everybody in this world. No one has to actually be poor. No one has to be destitute. everybody can achieve their full potential if enough resources are just put into them. And that's what my socialism represents, and my feminism, my anti-racism are all about equality. As a black woman, these are things that affect me personally, and I feel that a world which took better stock of them and did more to challenge them would be a better one. I think it's taken many years to get to where we are, but just because we've made gains doesn't mean we should stop.
It has been the in modern times it has been described or asserted that the Labour Party is of two streams of political ideology: those of the traditional Clement Attlee, Clement Attlee welfare, social democrat idealism, and the Blairite, evolution. Do you think that it is really true, or Labour is it's a homogeneous political party?
No, we're not. We're not. We are. We. There are people within the party that believe different things, and I think it was Tony Benn that said that the Labour Party can't fly on one wing alone. Our strength is our diversity, but at the same time, there are confines of what we believe, and we're a socialist democratic party. People have different views as to how we get to being social democrats and running a society in that way. But the fact remains, those are our core beliefs, and that's what we stand on.
But do you think by any chance, peradventure, this diversity or divergence in political philosophy or philosophizing, as there's this dual divergence of political ideology might have affected Labour's fortunes in the last elections? Do you think so?
No, I don't think so. I think that political ideology is something that always stands behind us. But at every election, people have put forward policies. And I'd like to say that people voted solely on those policies, but they haven't. A lot of the time, there's been a lot of noise, there's been a lot of smoke, and been a lot of mirrors. A lot of our past elections have had to do with Brexit and so-called getting Brexit done, and just rhetoric, and people have used various means to. There's been a lot of influence from the media and things such as that. So it's not I would say as cut and dry as an issue with our ideology. We actually find the majority of people actually do agree with things, but when it comes down to it, noise, smoke and mirrors changes, I believe, how people eventually go out and vote. And not just that, actually sometimes people just don't go out and vote. A lot of the time people talk about traditional Labour voters, turning to Tory, and actually a lot of the time that's not even the case. The issue is that sometimes for Labour voters it's a choice of voting Labour or not voting at all. They have to be particularly inspired to come out, and unfortunately with the electoral system the way it is at the moment, I think sometimes people get downhearted that no matter what they do, nothing will change.
Okay. Now, proud to be an MP, you were Chief of Staff to former Labour frontbencher Diana Abbott. Obviously, she's known as one of the Labour firebrands in British politics. Now, how was that experience for you, and how did that experience, working with Diana Abbott, impact on your own pathway in politics, in British politics?
Well, if you're going to be a black woman in Parliament, there's probably no better person to have worked under in terms of getting the experience that you need. But at the same time as probably being a great mentor and a great influence in terms of my decision, she probably also put me off quite a bit. Not purposely, but obviously because of all of the abuse that she faces. And I suppose that's really hard. But then at the same time, she's always instilled that idea that if you shy away from things, just because people are, throwing abuse, then actually the abusers have won. So we just need to continue on, and I suppose that's quite possibly some of the best advice she's ever given me. And she's still in Parliament, which is great. It's great to have her here whilst I'm an MP as well.
Mm, mm. Um, People have described her as a very controversial political figure. In the, is it that people really don't understand her dynamism of political reasoning, or just that she's just a one-off, you know, as a political personality in British politics?
I think people have always struggled with Diane in that she was the first black woman elected to Parliament. They never expected to see a black woman, but she's also an extremely brilliant woman. And so people have done the utmost they can in kind of as a pushback to seeing this very intelligent black woman, a trailblazer.
I think she was the first black woman to be elected to as an MP. If I stand for
Yeah,
correction,
she was. She
yeah,
was.
okay, yeah.
And she went to Cambridge in the 70s back. I mean, even now they're still struggling to get young black people into Cambridge, but she went back then.
Mm.
So I think for a lot of people to have, and they probably wouldn't admit this, was to have a black woman, an intelligent black woman telling them what to do, really didn't, or telling them what was what, didn't really fit the status quo. So you've seen people who have gone to great efforts to attempt to make her seem like she may not be on the ball with this or with that, and I think that's really awful. But it's testament to the type of racist narratives that people want to get out there.
Mm. You have challenged the role of the media and the valuing black female MPs, particularly the BBC parliamentary errors. Now, in your view, to what extent do you think that the media has undervalued black females, black female MPs or politicians, and to what impact is it having on British politics?
Well, I've definitely seen the way they've treated Diane, which I think has been awful over the years. But also, I mean, the situation which I find myself in was that BBC had got had labelled Dawn Butler, MP, talking in Parliament. They labelled her as Marsha de Cordova, and then when the Evening Standard went to write about it, they used a picture of Dawn instead of a picture of Marsha. They used me, and then Getty Images, who sold the picture to the Evening Standard to be used, said that, unfortunately, whoever had been labelling their pictures had labelled every picture of myself since I'd been elected as Marsha de Cordova. Now, the reason why I definitely see that as undervaluing is there are not so many of us. There's definitely more of us than there used to be. There's not so many of us for you to get us confused. But also, there are some white male MPs who even have the same name, and they don't get them confused. They label them with the right constituency. So when you're getting us confused, it just appears careless. It just appears like something that doesn't matter. And we do matter. We deserve as much respect as every other member of Parliament. We were all elected to be here, and we should be treated with the equality and respect we deserve.
So what you technically what you were saying is that there is a level of sexism in British politics. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and racism.
And racism. All right. I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue.
Worship Crossway Revival Baptist Church welcomes you. Under the leadership of Reverend Kamani Genfi, the Lord has allowed us to uplift the banner of truth through His Word. The Lord has made the church the corporate expression of Himself. He has saved us, regenerated us, built up, and made us a coordinated, covenanted people to support, serve, and reshape lives for His glory. Our times of services are Sunday worship service 10:30 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. and Saturday deliverance prayer meeting 11 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Our church address, Troy Hall, Nigel Road, Peckham Rye, London, SE15 4NS. Our contact numbers are 0783 036 2228 and 0751 828 9202. Looking forward to seeing you. God bless you all.
Baby asun ebi a oba kokuto abo nyankopon empaye Cross Revival Baptist Church a osopani kumani jamfida no beton safra wo se onfa onyame asem so ma no correct franka no so enchew onyame aye Cross Revival Baptist Church se onfa nipa tibia ni adwene mu nkitahudie nka wo mum se wo hwehwe Cross Revival Baptist Church akiri kwan ya bra Peckham Troy Hall Nigel Road Peckham Rye London SE15 4NS ko se de biara no anapa don't do nifa hwesomase na nko pepepe awiabrem yapon na me dan so no baba o jempa bonhyem eye deliverance prayer meeting anapa don't do baako na ya hyase na de ko wie don ko pepepe freye wa homa true for so 078-303-62228 078-303-62228 and I say 075-182-89202 075-182-89202 osofo kumani jamfi any Cross Revival Baptist Church for nyina retwen eton safra wo by crowd so wonne wo bebom asum enti friend why crowd retwen wo for bad that is so hey some shawa kenya odu for
Yes, we're back to the studios, and this is Global Issues, the platform where we discuss politics, economics, and anything that borders on civic development. I mean, we discuss serious issues with serious people. And here we have the MP for STREATHAM, RIBEIRO-ADDY, with us to continue our discussions. Yeah, Bill, we are back to after the commercial break. Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, we're back from the commercial break. Yeah, so we're going to continue our discussion. Now, you have said in our publication on the portal that I got it from your portal. It says that it was captioned, "We need a human and fair asylum system, not another anti-refugee bill." Now, you stated that I voted to throw out the government's nationality and borders bill at a second reading. Now, rather than creating a fair and human asylum system, the Tories are punishing. The Tories are punishing people who come here seeking safety and exposing them to further risk of exploitation and human rights violations. Now, do you think that the Tories are insensitive to the plight of refugees? And if you think that they are insensitive, now what better option do you think that Labour has for refugees in that regard?
Well, I think firstly they're definitely insensitive to refugees and actually migrants overall. Some of the piece of legislation that they've passed since they came into power in 2010 has been so completely regressive in a way that hasn't even helped the country. They've helped sell this idea that the country's overrun by migrants, which is absolutely ridiculous. We require immigration actually for our economy to thrive. We need people to do certain jobs, and when we think about the legislation we've had since 2010, we've just had increased visa charges. We've had people being denied even being able to visit. You may have some people that experience maybe getting married or there being a funeral and trying to get a relative to come over and being asked the most ridiculous questions, and people's grandparents being rejected from coming to their funeral because they said or their wedding because they said they're not going to come back, and ridiculous things such as this. People treated as suspects, people being deported on mass deportation flights and locked in immigration detention, only to find out that a lot of the people, up to 70% of the people that are put in immigration detention, are eventually released and allowed to stay. And the scandal of it is that for every day that they're in there, there's some private company that's collecting money. So a private company is making profit of human misery on the basis that somebody is a migrant, something which they cannot control. They may have been born somewhere else. And actually, some of these people are genuinely seeking asylum. And instead of supporting them, especially when we've seen that they're in really serious situations, that the UK has had a hand in, and other Western nations have had a hand in across the world in terms of wars. We're turning them away. We're turning them away even though there are shortages in this country of people that we need to work. I mean, if people need support, and then people are coming, when people come as refugees, there's really disgraceful idea of them, they're coming to take. They have had to leave everything they know and love back at home. They just want to start a new life. And part of that new life is working. And if we have vacancies, why should we not allow them to work?
So, do you think that the Tories are more they are more bourgeoisie than proletariat, and therefore, because of that, they are detached from the realities of the traumas of grassroots politics, and for that reason, they don't really. They are not so much, have an inkling to the catastrophic experiences of the plight of immigrants. Do you think that this issue of or this perspective of an elitist clique of politicking has affected this? I mean, for the Tories, have affected them in trying to see read through the lines in the realities of the traumas, the traumatic experiences of immigration in this country.
Yeah, I do agree that there is a definite lack of sympathy, but it is about ideology. There are some people that genuinely believe that the reason why they have what they have is because they've worked hard, and that's it. They haven't thought about all of the many different advantages they have in life to put them in that situation. And, when we think about things such as setting a minimum wage, you've got members of parliament here talking about, Tory members of parliament talking about how their wages need to be increased. Meanwhile, they're setting the minimum wage for somebody else. And we ask them, could you live on that? They say no. And I think that's an absolute disgrace. How can you insist that you are so much better than your constituent as to say that they can live on that amount of money, but you must live on more? We're here to be representatives, not monarchs. We're meant to do better for our communities, not look down on them and tell them what it is that they deserve in life, whilst asking for more for ourselves.
Okay, I mean, another important or disturbing issue, in most of the boroughs and constituencies is youth crime, youth violence and gangs and things like that. Now, youth safety, tackling knife crime means investing in safer neighborhoods now by resourcing local governments properly and adopting a holistic public health approach to violence. You said we can work effectively with the local communities to make harm reduction as the focus or something like that. Now, to what extent do you think has this investment in safer neighborhoods campaign ameliorated, the rather skyrocketing statistics of stabbings and youth crime in Streatham?
Yeah, well, I think that all of those issues have definitely risen with issues of deprivation, and there's not one way to fix them. There's one way to fix them all, and it's a multifaceted approach. Now, there are many different things. Yes, deprivation is definitely an issue, but there's definitely an issue, I suppose, of what people face. Someone once pointed out to me quite clearly when we talked about poverty being a major driver for crime, that actually they said, well, they've been to Accra, they've seen poverty in Accra, but they don't see people stabbing each other, young black men stabbing each other in the way that they are here. So there's something going on which needs to be addressed, and a lot.
When you say Accra, do you mean Accra, Ghana, or?
Accra, Ghana, yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay.
Obviously, I know obviously it's a completely different country, but you cannot, it just explaining how one factor isn't going to change things, and that's why we've called for a public health approach, multifaceted approach. And a lot of people talk about public health approach as if they're actually doing this, but they're not. And there was a time some years back where if you asked people what was the crime capital of the UK, they'd probably said something like Hackney or Lambeth or Southwark or Brent or something like that, when actually it was Glasgow. And it wasn't, and that's why it's so important not to racialise these issues, because in Glasgow it wasn't knife crime amongst black communities. It was knife crime amongst the white communities there. And there were issues of gang violence, but they adopted a full public health approach. It was properly resourced, and things changed. Things changed quite drastically in a relatively short amount of time. There just has to be there has to be a lot of community engagement. There has to be resources. There needs to be a proper understanding of what's going on, and not one size is going to fit all, which is why it's important to work with the local authorities to do this. Some areas, drivers to crime can be completely different. I know some years back there was a police force, I think in the Midlands, that noticed a spike in crime, and I think this is when they had a bit more autonomy. They realised that they did some investigation. They realised that actually the spike in crime was due to a lot more drug users and people abusing drugs, and that a lot of the crime was coming from that. So they invested in drug rehabilitation, and guess what? Crime fell. It's just about using evidence available and being willing and working with local partners, and things can change. But people are so driven by profit in other means, and it's just a really bad bout of inefficient and incompetent government for far too many years now.
Do you think that this government is incompetent, or it's insensitive to the plight of generally the plight of citizens, especially those in the minority, those the minority? Do you think that they're incapable of delivering, under this government, or you think that it's just that they are insensitive?
I think both. They are obviously extremely insensitive, and that's why they've passed some of the legislation they have, knowing that it will cause people problems. But they're also quite incompetent. We are in the 6th largest economy in the world. On a world stage, the UK is considered quite highly. So to have a situation where we've had ridiculous instances of food shortages in our country, shortages of PPE, to have a situation where we have nearly 160,000 people die of COVID in a country this size, and just to shrug it off, or just the incompetence of how the pandemic was dealt with really showed the government in a true light. How people behave in a crisis is probably a testament to them, and they have failed on every single level, I think, during this pandemic. So yeah, insensitive 100%, incompetent definitely.
Do you think Labour would have handled the pandemic in a better manner than what the Tories, and what makes you think so?
Absolutely 100%, because in order to survive the pandemic they had to adopt essentially some Labour policies, but obviously they didn't adopt them properly, but they had to increase state investment in just about every single area, and this is something that the Labour Party is calling for overall. They had to they had to support people in a way that they hadn't before. They had to find ways to get people online, because a lot of the applications that people were making for support was online. When we said that we wanted to make broadband free because of how much it was used at the end of the last election, they were calling it broadband communism. But there is going to be a generation of young people who will demand free access to the internet at some point in time, because it's so essential to everything that we do. So all of these things happened, and we've been challenging them. And actually, another thing we would have done, we wouldn't have wasted so much money on things, because obviously they spent a lot of time giving their friends contracts, and contracts with large amounts of public money, that could have been better spent elsewhere, and it could have been better spent with other services. But I mean, for example, there's one Conservative donor who apparently run a company called Pest Fix or something like that, and literally their job was killing rodents and things such as that, killing pests. And then they gave them a contract for millions of pounds to make PPE, and guess what? They messed up the PPE order, but it's probably because their expertise are in killing rats. There's no surprises there. So there's a lot of inappropriate contracts given out, a lot of public money wasted, a lot of people dying unnecessarily because of a lack of responsibility when it came to lockdowns. And lockdowns are extremely frustrating, but if we had locked down sooner and faster, we would have had less lockdowns.
You've criticized the vaccine only approach and called for restrictions until case numbers reach zero. Okay, now do you really believe that is technically feasible for case numbers to reach zero?
No, I think what you may be confusing. I'm calling for zero COVID policy. That's a process of eliminating the virus. I don't believe we can eradicate it, because we don't have the type of vaccine but I believe that we can eliminate it, and we've seen examples of it being eliminated in certain areas with certain protocols. So eliminating it is zero, but eradicating it to almost nothing, and that's where New Zealand got to at some point. And last Christmas, where we were all having to be locked up, they were out at their festivals, and people were going to places with their masks off, because they had taken things seriously. And not just that, it's not just about looking down at the right time, it's about providing people support when lockdown was happening. So a lot of people probably felt under a lot of pressure to go to work, because not everybody could access the furlough, not everybody could do what was necessary to be able to stay at home. Not everybody had access to that financial support, so they were under more pressure, and being under more pressure meant that COVID spread a lot faster.
Now there are a section of the population who believe that this COVID thing is a political agenda to for some heinous reasons, for best known to them, and that for that reason a lot of people want to take the vaccine. And now, from your perspective or from your standpoint, how best do you think that this issue can probably be reversed, with people being reluctant to want to take the COVID vaccine?
Well, I think firstly we need to increase confidence. I think forcing people to do it
why do people are so skeptical, and they are not convinced about this? And especially, this new variant of the Omicron, every day something new is coming up. So people, and there's been publications, boomeranging through and through on social media, from even professionals, some of them debunking the realities of of the COVID. And so, it's creates some sort of a very vague atmosphere, where people are, they are in two minds as to really what is happening, and therefore they are not convinced.
Yeah, and I think instead of dismissing them, obviously I think it's important that everybody gets vaccinated and they do everything they can to protect others. But instead of dismissing them, I think it's important to listen to their concerns and understand, particularly from certain communities' perspective, why they would have mistrust in a vaccine being pushed by this particular government. I understand why they would, but I think it's important to meet
Introducing
people where
Face
they are
Blur
and
on the
you
new
know,
Google
talk to
Pixel
them,
6.
reason with them and explain to them. For years we've been taking vaccines, particularly those of us that may travel back to countries like Ghana often, you know, with yellow fever, various tetanus shots, and hepatitis, etc. So and typhoid and polio. So we get those vaccinations often. And quite interestingly, all of those years, people haven't really questioned what's in the vaccine and what's happening in X, Y, Z. Now, when people are at home, kind of to their own devices with social media, things began to spread. But that's because the government haven't taken the time to instill that confidence. You can't just force people to do things. You have to bring them along with you. And there are other countries that have quite successfully turned the tide of vaccination hesitancy just by appealing to it. So, for example, one of the stories that has been going around is about women's fertility after taking the vaccine. And, you know, you'll hear some people talking about, well, do you know anybody who's conceived since they've had a vaccination? Actually, I do know people that have been conceived, and the government are well aware that there are women that are concerned about this. And instead of, you know, publicising this fact that, yes, here is a woman here and here's a woman there who has had a vaccination and since then been able to become pregnant and deliver a baby, etc. They're just saying, oh, it doesn't affect it. People want to see some sort of evidence, especially with the amount of misinformation that's been put around. They're just not doing a good job at getting the message out there that the vaccination is safe.
Okay. Now, you have this initiative called the Culinary Centre of South London. STREATHAM Food Festival, organized by STREATHAM, was not just carrying out the lockdown, bringing people together and encouraging people to put money into small independent businesses in local economies. Now, from your point of view, what extent do you think that this initiative has positively impacted small businesses in Streatham?
It's not my initiative per se. It's definitely one that I support with the Streatham Business Improvement District and Love Streatham and Streatham Action and others who are quite heavily involved in organising those. And it's really just about just particularly at a difficult time trying to get people to support their local businesses. And it has been quite successful. Introducing people to places that they may not have usually gone to, really showcasing the area. I always tell people that if there was, if there was some sort of apocalyptic event, Streatham would be the place to be, because, you know, we have our own windmill, and just on Brixton Hill, we have a brewery even in Streatham. There are various gardens community gardens where food is grown. We have many different hives, so there's people making local honey. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of fantastic small businesses and a lot of things being actually produced in Streatham.
That's quite fantastic. We just left with some few minutes to exit the studio. Now, Labour is under a new leadership, Keir Starmer, and I mean, it's like Jeremy Corbyn was incapable of probably meeting the expectations of the electorate. Now, what X factor that Keir Starmer has that you think will change the political fortunes of Labour in the next elections?
I mean, I wouldn't have said that Jeremy Corbyn was incapable. There are definitely a lot of factors to consider in that type of election. But But also, again, it's the same thing. Same thing when it comes to Keir. I think a lot of the time people like to focus on party politics on one individual. I understand why. Obviously, we do elect a leader. We do have a figurehead. But our party is more than one person. It's also all of its members, and its members are its strength. And I think, and I hope that's what people will be looking to. The confidence that members have in the party, the confidence that members have in the policies that we're going to put forward for the next election, and that is ultimately what will win it for us. And I think people have to have to have had enough of all of these years of a Conservative government that has so fundamentally disrespected and failed the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill. We've had Bill RIBEIRO-ADDY, the MP for Streatham, on global issues. Bill, thank you so much for coming on global issues on GN Radio. It was a great honor having you, and we'll want to have you another time again. And so, this has been Lartey on global issues. Make a day with me every Tuesday between 8 to 9 p.m. I talk politics, economics, and anything that borders on civic development. Until next week, God bless and bye. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Speak to you. I'll call you back.
Oh.
She was physically forgotten, but then she slipped into my pocket with my car keys. She said, "You've taken me for granted because I pleased you, wearing these diamonds." And I could say, ooh, as if everybody knows what I'm talking about. As if everybody here would know exactly what I was talking about. I'm talking about diamonds on the soles of the shoes. She makes the sign of a teaspoon, he makes the sign of a wave. The poor boy changes clothes and he puts on aftershave to compensate for his ordinary shoes. And she said, "Honey, take me dancing," but they ended up by sleeping in a doorway by the bodegas and the lights on over Broadway, wearing diamonds on the soles of their shoes. And I could say, ooh, and everybody here would know what I was talking about. I mean, everybody here would know exactly what I was talking about. I'm talking about diamonds. People say I'm crazy, I got diamonds on the soles of my shoes, yeah. Well, that's one way to lose these walking blues. Diamonds on the soles of my shoes.